we want a virtual keyword here. This will tell C++ that these functions are supposed to be dynamic. These are polymorphic functions. So I need to tell C++ about them being polymorphic. So now let's start with the game class snake, and our snake is an object. So since it is an object, it will automatically get these. I need to have a start function. And by now you should be concerned why I am having start functions. I'm going to talk about these later, and I can actually do the same thing for bullet. And let's actually have a constructor. I'm going to store a reference to game engine directly here because I'm going to need the game engine for many of the things that I want to do. Let's do the same for bullet. Let's modify our logic for this. We still need the direction variables. Let's start the snake at the center of the screen instead. It should be E arrow. So you can see these functions here. It should be E arrow get input, and it can be simply dirx. And here it can now simply be X. So like I said before, this contains X. So automatic. Oh, am I updating bullet instead of snake? Right, so I should be updating snake. Snake will get X and Y because object has an X and Y. So I don't need to declare these variables again. Our variables look much nicer as well because it is now associated with each object. I do not need to specify. Right, so I have this function now instead. Yeah, much nicer. I have that function to display text. I should have a score here. Okay, first of all, let's actually remove our errors. It is actually not recognizing object yet because object is declared here and I'm trying to access it here. I should basically move this code here. There is no getting around it. Place correct. It's a function and toString was not declared in the scope. Let me modify that. So for this error, we need to edit compiler options. So this function is actually not available below C++11. So I'm going to edit this in compiler settings in order to make this work. Okay, there is actually no main function. In main, we want to have a game engine. We want to add two new objects, one object for player and one object for bullet. So I will actually create an object for player first, snake S, bullet B, and I'm going to pass the address of snake here, and I'm going to pass the object of bullet here. Snake needs the game engine and bullet also needs the game engine, right? So we are giving it the reference to game engine here. Everything in snake needs to be public. Same goes for bullet. The functions need to be public. This can be private, and there needs to be a constructor. Okay, start and update, they are actually not capitalized. It should be X and Y here. The snake should move. Okay, this is actually Y and X here. My mistake. Yeah, the snake moves now. I cannot actually control it. There is some missing code here. Yeah. I'm declaring a new variable here. I shouldn't be declaring a new variable here. So it works like it did before, and now I think our score can go beyond 10. We need to actually update bullets as well. So now what you see here, you see an issue. We are trying to access the variable of snake from bullet, but bullet does not know about snake, right? So actually we can handle this through two different methods. One of the methods is to pass the snake object here and do it with that, and another option to simply search for the snake by the game engine. Like we ask the game engine to search for the snake for us. So I'm going to go with that method instead. I'm going to have a new function called object search, and for this object search to work, I need to pass something here that will actually help us search for this object. First of all, we need to give our objects something unique to identify as. We can give them an ID or something like that, something that's unique. So I'm going to give them names right now. So every game object is going to have a unique name. We have no way of making sure that it's unique, but for best results, we are going to assume that this name is going to be unique, right? And now we are going to search by this name. Oh yeah, there is also another issue I just realized. We should return from here. So now we are actually going to give them names. This is bullet and this is snake. Now I want to also use this start function. It is supposed to run every time we add something to the game, right? When I add this object, I also want to call the start function of this object. So this will run only once when it is added. If I remove it and I add it again, it will be called again. When I add the bullet object to the game, I want to search for the snake object and have its reference as well, right? So I have a reference to snake here and I'm going to keep this reference. I'm going to search for it. If I do it in the constructor, it will run here. Now you see snake is actually not in the game yet, so this will not work in the constructor. So a lot of the times things might not work in the constructor, but a start function is a good place for things like that. And if I can't find snake, I should actually just quit. I'm going to remove the bullet if there is no snake. So this is going to avoid any errors that we encounter here. So I'm going to check X like before, Y, and this is going to be, actually let's make it snake. Oh yeah, there is no score variable in snake. It is actually private, so I'm going to make score public. And actually I'm going to start, I can simply do this score, right? Everything else should be handled as it was before. And so all of this might right now look more complicated than before. Like this is actually only 91 lines of code, but having the ability to dynamically do things, it is actually very much more valuable. Like it is going to significantly improve things for a larger game, for anything that is more advanced than this. I want to give a good example of this, but right now I don't know how to give you a good example of why you would need to have something dynamic in your game. For example, let's say you have a player in a shooting game, right? Let's say this is your player and this teeny thing is the gun. Actually, let's make this the gun, right? So this is the player and this is his gun, and you want bullets to generate. This is a bullet, right? So what if you did things this way? The player can shoot bullets. What you would need to do is you would need to hard code each bullet and each update of this bullet here, right here. But you do not know how many bullets are there. The bullets are being fired from the gun at a dynamic rate, right? You may also have some logic for dynamic enemies, and then the same problem arises again. How do you know when you have enough bullets and enough enemies? Like when do you stop adding things here, right? But with something like this, you can simply, if I write some basic code here, you can simply do if E arrow get input, let's say you are firing on F, right? If E arrow add object, and you can do like new bullet, and inside the constructor you can give the name bullet. So when you press F, you simply add bullet to the game. You might also have X, Y here, something like that. You generate a bullet dynamically, and then when you want to remove this bullet, you can simply do remove object and make a function that removes things by name. But for now, let's test whatever we have. Okay, there is no S here, there is a snake here. We are basically doing polymorphism, so you need to typecast this back. It needs to know that this is actually a snake, it is actually not an object using this function anymore. We are using place character X, Y and comma. The first one should be randomly placed as well. So every time some bullet is added, it gets added randomly. And yeah, it should be X plus I. Actually, a good way to describe this thing, if let's say I had all of these. When I add the snake to the game, all of these initialize, right? I can actually now write a good code for death here. So if I get a P, I should actually just remove myself and then add myself again, right? So this is actually going to automatically reset all of this. I do want to pause the game, so I'm going to simply use system pause. So now if I die, yep, I am dead. And if I press any key, look, it restarted. I added the snake object again and it successfully got added to the game. And my score should also be able to go beyond 9 right now. So yeah, that's all for now actually, I guess. We have successfully created a basic game